Have you ever run across someone who, after you get to know them, oddly seems to hate specific people without restraint? Perhaps they demonstrate little tolerance for anyone, friend or foe, who strays from this individual's worldview. Maybe you know of the HR complaint they logged because they read something a coworker wrote on Facebook, or that they spread disparaging rumors after noticing a political bumper sticker in the company parking lot. Or maybe you've come across someone online who you didn't know, perhaps a friend of a friend, and this person branded you a racist or a Nazi faster than you thought possible. If these examples ring any bells, you have likely encountered a social justice warrior. A social justice warrior, or SJW for short, is someone who has taken it upon themselves to join an informal group of individuals who have declared themselves to be the thought police of the West. This is an external definition, as SJWs generally feel the term is a slur. SJWs are a loose group, but they are able to bring a significant amount of pressure to bear on an individual or business in a short period of time, and they are unfailingly loyal to their ideology. Social justice warriors have been responsible for a number of public shamings and disemployings in the past few years, including Brandon Ike, formerly of Mozilla, and Sir Timothy Hunt, a Nobel Prize winner. These two individuals are at the absolute heights of their professions and actively pushing the human race forward. It did not matter. One made an innocuous comment and the other made a small political contribution. For these sins, SJWs decided they had to have their lives turned upside down and their reputations destroyed. The crime of having a different opinion meant a public morality trial in which both men were guilty before they even knew they were in front of a partisan jury. Theodore Beale is a science fiction fantasy author, political commentator, publisher, game developer, and alt-tech revolutionary who writes mostly under the pseudonym of Vox Day. Vox first noticed a pattern to the behaviors of SJWs in 2012. Over time, he cataloged his findings to specific rules these individuals unwittingly follow, and uncovered the way to unmask and defeat them. He codified these revelations into a book called SJWs Always Lie, Taking Down the Thought Police. This video is a review of SJWs Always Lie and is broken into 4 parts: content, readability, personal enjoyment, and recommendation. Each has a 1 to 5 star rating. Content. SJWs Always Lie has a wealth of important content. Most important to the average reader are the explanation of Vox's observed 3 laws of SJWs, which are as follows: SJWs always lie, SJWs always double down, and SJWs always project. Why are these laws important? There are 2 major reasons. First, they are an observable trend that one can use to accurately predict what the next move of a social justice warrior will be. Second, they are effective rhetoric. A portion of this book explains the tactical use of a logical argument, specifically dialectic versus rhetoric. As Vox is very fond of quoting, Aristotle observed so many years ago, "Before some audiences, not even the possession of the exactest knowledge will make it easy for what we say to produce conviction. For argument based on knowledge implies instruction, and there are people whom one cannot instruct." Vox contends in his book that social justice warriors are such a people. If we cannot get our point across with fact-based arguments, an argument that targets emotion is necessary. The 3 laws of SJWs target the emotions of social justice warriors and normal people in a pithy way. Normal people obtain an easy way to remind themselves first that their guard should go up, and second, that this behavior is not acceptable. Social justice warriors have their emotions manipulated in such a way that the SJW's operations become less effective. In addition to the laws of SJWs and tactical logical argument, Vox details out the steps in an SJW attack, how to survive the encounter, how to counterattack, and how interested individuals can protect themselves and Western civilization against this type of damaging ideology. In hindsight, it would have actually been possible to predict some of Vox Day's moves in 2016 based on the later chapters in this book. This book could be a valuable resource to the social justice warriors who oppose Vox Day, if only they were people whom one could instruct. I rank content a 5 out of 5. Readability. This book has one characteristic which impacts the ratings I give in both readability and personal enjoyment. Namely, this book spends a lot of time in two subsections of geek culture that the average person may or may not have much experience in. First is Gamergate, and second is the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, the acronym is SFWA, and Sad Puppies Hugo battles. The book is laid out in a quasi-story fashion, beginning with the first SJW attack Vox Day endured in 2012, and chronicling a number of examples of social justice warrior behavior between that time and the book's publication in 2015. This is interspersed with dozens of relevant quotes and some side journeys into strategy or tactics. Vox spends quite a bit of time talking about the lessons he learned dealing with the social justice warriors he encountered in the SFWA, as well as the lessons he learned both watching and participating in the Gamergate consumer revolt against the establishment video games media. People who care about these situations, or at least have an open mind to learning about them, will appreciate the way they entertain and instruct. These stories do a great job moving the reader along and helping them to understand why SJWs function the way they do. However, they can also serve to distract someone who doesn't care about the stories from understanding the overall point. It is clear to me SJWs Always Lie demonstrates Vox Day is a professional and competent wordsmith as well as an above-average storyteller. I rate readability a 4 out of 5. Personal enjoyment. This section is designed around what I believe the personal enjoyment of the average individual who picks up the book would be, not my own. And with that statement in mind, I bring us back to what I mentioned earlier about the SFWA and Gamergate. If you find the application of fourth-generation warfare conducted electronically by gamers against SJWs fascinating, this is a book you will enjoy. Similarly, if the inside baseball of Hugo voting controversies or SFWA politics is up your alley, you should read this book immediately. I think both of those subsections of the population would be relatively small, but the good news is it is not mandatory that you care about any of those things to enjoy the book. From a purely utilitarian point of view, it is possible to skip the parts you do not care for and focus only on the chapters that contain the strategy of defending yourself or aggressively counterattacking social justice warriors. One important caveat about personal enjoyment. The tactics and strategies described in SJWs Always Lie are not always pleasant to think about. But if a cultural war comes to your doorstep, you become a target whether you want to or not. To put this in a historical perspective, notice how the Russians have a basic strategy whenever they are invaded from the West. It doesn't matter if they are facing Swedish Karelians, Napoleon's Great Army, or German soldiers in World War I and World War II. The Russians know if they are invaded from the West, they can employ scorched earth defenses and allow the elements to wear down the invading army until the invaders can be turned back. There is no joy in burning your lands, but there is far less joy in being an occupied people who are brutalized by an enemy who holds no compassion for you or your loved ones. If nothing else, the Russians have a strategy that has worked for hundreds of years, if indeed the worst happens. Vox Day is not a soft man. There is a very harsh reality displayed in this book that many will not have the stomach to digest. That's okay. It's not easy to realize you may need to turn from defender to aggressor to survive, and it's often worse to realize you may need to take action that makes you extremely uncomfortable. Not everyone will be willing or able to take that step if their time comes, but at least they will recognize what is happening and then be able to make an educated choice. You can choose to be a victim, but this book gives you the tools you need to punch back twice as hard if you desire to use them. SJWs Always Lie works better as a recommendation for anyone who is outside either of the Greek subcultures of science fiction fantasy books or gaming media watchdogs and gamers, or those who may just naturally have a softer disposition. The good news for Vox Day is that his following has grown and his fan base is generally fanatical. My understanding is SJWs Lie has sold very well and has received some great reviews. I have little doubt this book and his others are being suggested to many tens of thousands of people by Vox fans around the world. I've debated a 3 or 4 rating here for a few days, but in the end the strong sales ranks have swayed me. I rank personal enjoyment a 4 out of 5. Final recommendation. In my opinion, this book has a bit of a sliding recommendation scale. Let me explain. Fans of Vox Day will be very familiar with the subject matter and will easily obtain the most enjoyment from it. Vox regularly talks about these subjects on his blog and does get some very good discussion in the comment section in regards to these topics. People distant from Vox, or who just don't like the things he has to say, will probably find themselves to be confused by the narrative. Here's an example. Fans of Vox Day fall under 3 nicknamed categories: the Ilk, the Dread Ilk, and the Vile Faceless Minions. Ilk are basically fans who drop in every so often, read a few articles, maybe pick up a book, but are not all that active. The Dread Ilk are much more engaged or are very long-term readers, and these are individuals whom Vox has a deep appreciation and affection for. The Vile Faceless Minions, or VFMs, are another matter entirely. They are certainly fans, but are also a form of shock troops. VFMs are individuals who have taken an oath of loyalty to Vox and help him in whatever way Vox Day asks them to. I'm not one of them, so I'm not certain how serious this oath is or if it is semi-tongue-in-cheek. But either way, the Vile Faceless Minions are known to be extraordinarily effective. Vox gives them orders, or at least suggestions, and they act. In SJWs Always Lie, Vox does reference the Vile Faceless Minions on a couple occasions, but does not give any context for them. To the average person, this comes across as a bit distracting and can be off-putting. But to people who understand the context, the reference makes sense and it drives the point home. Therefore, for fans of Vox Day's blogs, Vox Populi or Alpha Game, this book is an instant buy. You will love every sentence. But those who do not have much interest in some of the topics in this book, i.e. the Gamergate and Hugo controversy stories, will probably find it mostly good with a few weird sections that feel like in-jokes. Overall, I think Social Justice Warriors Always Lie is a solid 4 out of 5. This is a book many people need to read, especially on the right. Social justice warriors are not an abstract idea. These are real people who believe in the marrow of their bones they are doing good work. But they will not hesitate to sacrifice or destroy anyone who gets in their way or steps out of sync with their ideology. These individuals are not your average slacktivists. They are out for blood, and they do not care whose blood that comes from. They will throw their own mother under the bus if they feel it enhances and sticks with the narrative. SJWs Always Lie may not stop them from attacking you, but it will teach you how to overcome the attack. If this review has not convinced you that you should purchase SJWs Always Lie, I suggest you download the SJW Survival Guide on Vox Day's blog as a sample. If you find the information valuable, you'll be very pleased with the entire book, and if not, you saved yourself $10. My next book review will be Gorilla Mindset by Mike Cernovich. The plan is to have it done within 2 weeks, but I want to make certain to experiment with many of Mike's methods before I give a full review. Much of this material is things I've seen elsewhere, but the pieces that I haven't seen, and the way that Mike is weaving them together into one mindset ideal, is very interesting, and I've found that so far, it does seem to work quite well. So I'm very excited to be able to share what I've learned from this book with all of you, and to help you see if maybe this is something that will work for you too. We also have the inauguration of Donald Trump to the presidency soon, and I expect there will be ample news to react to. Perhaps if something becomes big enough, I'll be able to sit down and give you some commentary on it. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoyed this review, please like and